prayers.
Almighty God, Creator of the universe, we graciously thank you for your numerous blessings bestowed upon us. As we gather here today as future leaders, we look towards you for your guidance and wisdom in our deliberations at this mock sitting of this Nevis Island Assembly to debate the resolution addressing the issue of the acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM member states. We ask you, Almighty God, that you open our hearts to accept those things that are true and to demonstrate love always, so that we and all citizens of this federation can live in peace and harmony. In all which we seek, in thy name, and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please be seated. Motion for the approval of the order paper as circulated.
I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 1.
Madam President, I seek leave to move the approval of the order paper as circulated.
I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 4.
Madam President, I rise to seek leave to second the motion.
The question is that the motion for the approval of the order paper as circulated be approved. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Commonwealth Day messages by His Majesty the King, Head of Commonwealth. We join together on this Commonwealth Day at a time of great challenge and great possibility. Across our world, communities and nations face the increasing pressures of conflict, climate change, and rapid transformation. Yet, it is often in such testing moments that the enduring spirit of the Commonwealth is most clearly revealed. Ours is a remarkable association that spans every ocean and continent, embracing an extraordinary diversity of culture, language, and faith. Our Commonwealth family is united by shared values of justice, democracy, opportunity, compassion, and mutual respect. In a world that can feel increasingly fragmented, this voluntary union of free association remains rare and precious, a forum for open and honest discussion and debate to help improve the lives of nearly 3 billion people who call our member states home. Our Commonwealth nations hold untapped potential for prosperous trade between trusting partners. With nearly 2/3 of our population under the age of 30, we are a family defined by youth and possibility. It is our shared responsibility to ensure that they inherit not only hope and ambition, but also a world in which they can flourish. That inheritance depends upon the health of our planet and on the restoration of the natural world on which we depend. Across so many parts of our Commonwealth, climate change is not an abstract or distant threat, but a lived reality. The stewardship of nature, the protection of oceans and forests, and the pursuit of prosperity, secured in harmony with the natural world, are duties we owe not only to one another, but to the generations yet unborn. As we look ahead to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Antigua and Barbuda later this year, we are reminded that the great gatherings of our nations are strengthened by daily endeavors of our people. What distinguishes the Commonwealth is not only what our government resolves together, but what our people do each day in countless acts of service, enterprise, and creativity. When leaders meet, they do so on behalf of millions whose determination, resilience, and generosity give true meaning to our shared endeavor. Working together, we can ensure that Commonwealth continues to stand as a force for good, grounded in community, committed to the kind of restorative sustainability that has a return on investment, enriched by culture, steadfast in its care for our planet, and united in friendship and the service of its people. Announcements by the President.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for this mock sitting of the Honorable House. Whether in person or virtually, your presence is greatly appreciated. For today's mock sitting, we have with us a panel of 3 evaluators who would assist us with evaluating the presentations. I will now read the profiles of these 3 evaluators. Ms. Tammy Liebert Brown. Ms. Brown is the founder and principal of the law offices of TACT Liebert Brown, a full-service firm on Main Street, Charlestown, serving the Nevis community for over 20 years. A proud graduate of the University of the West Indies at the Cave Hill campus and Norman Manley Law School. She brings extensive legal experience grounded in excellence and integrity. She is guided by the principle that every file is a life, reflecting her deep commitment to client advocacy and justice. Beyond law, she is a partner in Flowers and Moments, embodying her entrepreneurial drive and community impact. She has also served as island coordinator for youth ministry within the Seventh-day Adventist Church, demonstrating her dedication to youth development and service. Passionate about mentorship, as she continues to invest in shaping the future leaders of tomorrow. Joy Napier. Ms. Joy Napier is a community activist and educator. She's the founder and principal of the Nevis International Secondary School, a role she has held for the past decade. Prior to this, Joy worked for a London-based think tank, the Henry Jackson Society. Joy was a CARICOM Youth Ambassador for St. Kitts and Nevis and a national delegate to the Commonwealth Youth Council. She's a board member of the Nevis Boys Mentorship Program. Joy was the 2022 Chevening Scholar for St. Kitts and Nevis. She attained a Master's in International Development with distinction from the University of Edinburgh. Joy also holds a bachelor's in political science from the Wesley College. Mr. Mario Phillip. Mr. Phillip is a graduate of the Charlestown Secondary School and the Nevis Sixth Form College, where he served as an executive member and debater of the Nevis Literary and Debating Society. Mr. Phillip began his life of civic engagement by serving in roles such as Public Relations Officer of the Nevis Youth Council from the years 2013 to 2014 and alternate St. Kitts Nevis CARICOM Youth Ambassador from the years 2013 to 2015. His love for nation building led him to volunteer as a staff sponsor of the Nevis Island Assembly Youth Parliament during his years as a teacher of English at the Charlestown Secondary School. Mr. Phillip currently works as a gender officer at the Department of Gender Affairs and a real estate agent with Hammeron Services Limited. He remains active in community engagement as a member of HOPE, Helping Our People Excel, Nevis Incorporated, the founder and chairman of the Nevis Boys Mentorship Program Incorporated, and a volunteer protocol officer with the Premier's Ministry. Mr. Phillip is a recent alum of the U.S. Department of State's International Visitor Leadership Program, engaging youth in the political process, where he participated in mock parliament sittings in Seattle, Washington, and he currently serves on the National Committee for Education for Sustainable Development. At this time, I would now like to ask everyone to kindly turn off their devices or place them on silent so that we do not experience any interruptions during the mock sitting of the Honorable House. Thank you.
Papers to be lead. Statements by ministers. Personal explanations. resolution.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 5.
Madam President, I seek leave to introduce the Nevis Youth Resolution, which focus on addressing the issues of acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM member states.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 3.
Madam President, I rise to second that motion, and I reserve my right to speak on the resolution later in the debate.
The question is that the Nevis Youth Resolution, which focuses on addressing the issue of the acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM member states, be introduced in the Honourable House. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 5.
Madam President, I rise to give my contribution to the Nevis Youth Resolution that is before this Honourable House. Madam President, Honourable Ministers of Government, for honour, the Deputy Governor General, Hailita Liebert, OBE, MH, NIA representatives, permanent secretaries, members in the gallery, members viewing online. Welcome. As Premier of Nevis, Minister of Agriculture and Housing, and leader of the government's business in this Honourable House, I rise today with a clear and firm purpose and conviction to lend my full support to this resolution. Madam President, it is stated that leadership is often tested not in times of comfort, but times of challenges. And today we are presented with such a choice, where we can respond in hesitation and fear, as some would hope we are tempted to do. Or we can respond with a clear vision, responsibility, and confidence. Madam President, our opposition would like you to believe that our region can advance through isolation. But in reality, which may be news to them, our region has always advanced through cooperation, responsibility, and understanding that when one nation benefits, the entire region benefits. Madam President, the issue of third country deportees is not an abstract. It is a real and ongoing situation that is affecting our Caribbean people today. So the question before this Honourable House is not if the deportations will continue, because they will. The real question is how we will respond. We can see the deportees, Madam President, as a problem, or we can see them as an opportunity to demonstrate that the Caribbean, when united, is stronger than any challenge or challenger. Madam President, let me be clear, this issue is not theoretical. We have already seen the real cases affecting people from our region under the policies of current US President Donald Trump. Madam President, take for example, a Jamaican national was deported, but not to Jamaica, to an African country where he served 2 months in a maximum security prison without access to proper legal support or being charged when his home country of Jamaica was really willing to receive him. Madam President, this is not simple deportation. This is displacement without dignity, and he is not alone. There have been cases where individuals, including people from our wider region, have been deported to countries where they have no connection under arrangements that are raising serious concerns about fairness and due process. Madam President, that is exactly why my government and I rise to propose a coordinated Caribbean response, because if we do not act together, our people can find themselves caught in legal systems that do not prioritize fairness, dignity, or justice. A regional approach is the best approach, Madam President. Caribbean countries, we share similar legal systems, social challenges, and economic realities. So it is only logical that we share a solution. Madam President, through a coordinated framework, we can establish screening systems, rehabilitation programs, job training, and structured reintegration strategies. Because when reintegration succeeds, our region survives. Madam President, when it fails, as the opposition may hope, the consequences ripple through our communities. Unemployment rise, housing pressures become an issue that can cause social instability. But Madam President, this is also where international partnership must play its part. Because if deportation is a policy taken by the United States, then reintegration must be a shared responsibility. It is only fair and reasonable that those who facilitate the return of individuals to our region also contribute to systems required to successfully reintegrate them. In other terms, Madam President, if they must send them home, they got to support them. Such a fund as the U.S. CARICOM Reintegration Fund would allow for shared financial burdens between U.S. states and CARICOM nations to support structured reintegration programs. This can provide targeted resources for training, small business development, housing assistance, and social services specifically geared towards the third country deportees. Madam President, this is not at all about a shift in responsibility. It is about a shared responsibility. A joint fund would only strengthen cooperation between CARICOM member states and the United States to ensure better coordination, improved data sharing, and more orderly reintegration processes. It would allow Caribbean governments to plan proactively than to react under pressure. And by no means does this government plan to bow down to anybody's pressure. And importantly, Madam President, it would ensure that reintegration efforts are properly resourced, not underfunded and unimprovised, but structured, sustainable, and effective. Madam President, let me briefly touch on agriculture. Food security remains one of our greatest challenges. We import 80% of our food. Madam President, that costs our region $5 billion yearly. $5 billion. That money could be sent back into our countries, that could go into farmers, land, and to create jobs for agricultural resources. In Nevis, Madam President, from Gingerland to St. James, we understand the value of land. Through structured reintegration programs, individuals can be trained in farming, agro-processing, and agricultural enterprise. They can become contributors of food society and food security, not burdens to our nation. Madam President, in other words, let them grow our food. Now, Madam President, briefly touching on housing. We understand the value of land. Through structured reintegration programs, individuals can be...
Member, you have 1 minute left.
Madam President, I take leave to ask for an allotted 3 minutes to wrap up my presentation.
The Honourable Member for Nevis 5 has requested 3 more minutes for his presentation. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam President, housing is not just about buildings. It is about safety, security, and dignity, and stability. In Nevis, housing development drives economic activities, creating jobs for masons, carpenters, electricians, and suppliers. Madam President, I know this firsthand as I am building a house. Madam President, many may argue that reintegration will strain housing, but that argument ignores the reality. The U.S. CARICOM Reintegration Fund will support this, building transitional housing, support community development, and infrastructure expansion. This will not be a burden, but an opportunity for investment, job creation, and stronger communities. Madam President, imagine a fund where somebody can return home, be granted a temporary housing to get themselves back on their feet, and then move on to greater and better things in life and be a supporting and contributing member to our great nation. Beyond that, Madam President, our resolution seeks to support and strengthen regional unity. CARICOM was not created just for meetings and to look good and to fly out all over the place. CARICOM was created so Caribbean nations can stand together, solve problems together, and build a stronger region together. More importantly, this initiative reflects a belief in rehabilitation and opportunity. Every individual deserves a second chance, Madam President, to rebuild their life. With proper systems in place, individuals can transition from vulnerability to productivity. Madam President, Nevis has always been an island of resilience, built by people who chose cooperation over division and progress over fear. Supporting this resolution continues that great legacy. Madam President, where the opposition members may see challenges, this government sees opportunities. Opportunities to strengthen housing, expand agriculture, create jobs, deepen Caribbean cooperation, build a stronger and greater international partnership. Madam President, it is often said, history will not remember those who are afraid to lead, but history will remember those who had the courage to lead. And this government, the people's government, have the courage to make and embrace and lead that charge. May it please you, Madam President.
I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 8.
Members of the Parliament, distinguished guests, members of the media, and my fellow citizens, good morning to all. Madam President, I rise to give my contribution to the Nevis Youth Resolution before this Honorable House in my capacity as Leader of the Opposition and Shadow Minister of Gender Affairs, Youth and Social Development, to address the issue of the acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM states. Now let me set the tone early. The opposition is not against cooperation. But Madam President, we cannot stand here and clap for bad decisions dressed as diplomacy. Because at the end of the day, this is not paperwork. This is people. Madam President, the government may keep hiding behind the word pressure. Pressure from who? Pressure from what? Because last time I checked, pressure does not replace responsibility. And while they're busy talking about international relations, I am talking about real people, real communities. Single mothers are already struggling. Young people are already fighting for opportunities, and communities are under strain. So I have to ask, did the government plan for our people, or did they act without full preparation? Madam President, we can't impress big countries and neglect our small communities at the same time. Let's not tiptoe around this. Excluding Haitian nationals raises serious concerns of unequal treatment within our Caribbean community. We cannot shout, Caribbean unity, 1 minute, then quietly decide who qualifies the next. But because what is this message gonna send to our youth? That some Caribbean people deserve protection and others deserve exclusion? Madam President, that is not unity. That is inconsistency. You can't wave the CARICOM flag high, then pull it down halfway when it suits you. Madam President, let's get back to reality. Because outside of this chamber, people are catching real pressure. Youth unemployment, still high. Mental health services, barely accessible. And housing, already tight. Madam President, who are they trying to convince? Us or themselves? Because the government might want us to believe that we have space and systems and support. But because confidence alone cannot build systems. If confidence alone could build systems, we'll be fully developed already. Madam President, we can't spread resources we don't already have. This is where the government might get real quiet. because nobody is telling us clearly who exactly will be coming, what screening will be done, and how our women and children will be protected. And that silence is dangerous. Yeah, they might give it a peck here and there, but we need full disclosure. But Madam President, what makes this more concerning is we already have legislation in place. The Immigration Amendment Bill, the Anti-Smuggling of Immigrants Bill, both passed in 2024. The Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Data Record Amendment Bill just passed last year. These were designed to strengthen screening, monitoring, and protection. So the issue is not whether tools exist. The issue is whether they are being fully and effectively used. As Shadow Minister, I will not sugarcoat it. If proper systems are not in place, women, children, and our vulnerable youth will be the first to feel the consequences. Madam President, passing legislation is one thing, but enforcing it properly is another. Safety is not something you figure out after. It must be guaranteed beforehand. Madam President, the opposition supports a regional CARICOM approach. But let me say this plainly. This is not innovation. This is basic common sense. Because why should one small country carry the burden that clearly requires regional coordination? If the issues cross borders, then the solution must cross the borders too. Madam President, if the problem is regional, acting alone is not leadership, it is poor judgment. Madam President, yes, the CARICOM Rehabilitation Fund might sound good, real good actually, but we've heard good ideas before. So let me be clear, if that fund is not properly financed, transparent, and consistently managed, then it will become what many initiatives become, a nice announcement with no real impact. Madam President, we don't need more promises. We need systems that actually work. This debate is not theory. This is people's lives. As Shadow Minister of Gender Affairs, Youth, and Social Development, I stand firm. We must protect our women and our children, and also our youth and everyone involved. Prioritize them and strengthen our communities before burdening them. Because leadership is not about saying yes, 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 yes under pressure. It is about knowing when to say no to protect our people. Madam President, we are not here to prove that we are cooperative. We are here to prove that we are responsible. I thank you. May it please the Madam President.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 1.
Madam President, honorable members, members of the gallery both present and online, a blessed morning to you all. Madam President, I rise to give my contribution to the Nevis Youth Resolution that is before this honorable House. Madam President, let us begin with a simple truth no one in this chamber can deny. Small states like St. Kitts and Nevis do not have the luxury of theoretical decision making. Every policy we adopt carries real consequences for the economy, our people, and our inevitable future. As Minister of Finance and Tourism, I rise in support of the motion today. Madam President, our economy is not broadly diversified. We don't have the large-scale manufacturing of natural resources. What we have is service-based strength, tourism, financial services, and of course, international partnerships. Now let us attach numbers to this reality. In 2024, the Caribbean hosted 32 million tourists, generating US $40 billion, nearly half from the US. Madam President, that is not a casual relationship. That is economic dependency. So when the opposition may stand there and casually suggest that we refuse and push back, I must ask, are they prepared to gamble with $40 billion in regional tourism revenue? Are they prepared to gamble with the very market that sustains our foreign exchange? Or are they simply speaking without understanding the economy they claim to defend? The United States has intensified immigration enforcement. According to the United States Department of Homeland Security, over 140,000 individuals were deported in 2024 alone. Caribbean nationals form a part of this total. So the question is not whether deportation will happen, it is whether we will manage it or be overwhelmed by it. Because refusal does not stop deportation. Refusal simply isolates us while the problem continues anyway. So, Madam President, permit me to ask the serious questions. When deportees arrive regardless, what is your system? When pressure increases, what is your strategy? When our economy is affected, what is your solution? Because saying no repeatedly is not leadership either. It's a lack of intellectual competence. Madam President, this motion offers structure. It offers screening, limits, and coordination, and without a doubt, it offers funding. Because according to the regional policy estimates, the cost of reintegrating a single deportee, including housing, social services, and monitoring, can range between US $3,000 to $10,000 per individual annually. So let me be clear. Without funding, this becomes a burden on our taxpayers. But with a CARICOM rehabilitation fund supported in part by the United States, it becomes a managed finance program. That is not weakness, that is negotiation and fiscal responsibility. Madam President, there's also a broader reality that we cannot ignore. Small states like ours do not operate within isolation. We operate within systems of trade, diplomacy, and international cooperation. And history has shown us that small states, when they fail to engage constructively with major partners, the consequences are not symbolic. They are economic, reduced investment, economic isolation, trade embargoes, and of course, diminished negotiating power. So this is not simply a migration issue. It's an economic issue. It's a foreign policy issue, because the government understands that leadership is not about standing firm. It is about making decisions that secure long-term national stability and protect the livelihood of our people. Now let me turn to tourism, because that is where the consequences become immediate.
Honourable Member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam President. The World Travel and Tourism Council reports that tourism contributes 30% of GDP in some Caribbean economies when indirect impacts are incorporated. And studies show that even minor instability can reduce arrivals by 3 to 10%. Madam President, in real terms, that is millions of dollars lost. So when the opposition may propose reckless resistance with no structured plan, they are not protecting this country. They are risking the economic foundation on which our people depend. And the leader of the opposition, member of Nevis 9, stood there, and I quote, "Leadership is not about saying yes, 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 yes under pressure." That sounds like protecting sovereignty to anybody, because Franklin D. Roosevelt emphasized that a nation's sovereignty depends on its ability to provide for its people.
Honourable Member, your time is up.
Madam President, may I please be allotted an extra 3 minutes to conclude my debate?
The Honourable Member for Nevis 1 has requested 3 more minutes. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against?
As I said, Madam President, a nation's sovereignty depends on its ability.
Honourable Member, I have not spoken as yet.
Oh, sorry, Madam President.
But the ayes have it. You may continue.
Thank you. As I said, Madam President, a nation's sovereignty depends on its ability to provide for its people. Madam President, I understand that not everyone learns at the same speed, and not everyone can understand the big words I've used thus far. So let me break it down in simple terms for the honorable members. A country cannot be free if it cannot take care of its people. Now, Madam President, let me address...
Honourable Member, kindly refrain from offending the opposition's intellectual capacity.
Madam President, my statement was not addressed towards the opposition. I said, and I quote, I understand not everyone learns at the same speed and can understand the big words I've used thus far. In no way or form was my statement directed at the opposition.
Honourable member, you mentioned the word honourable members in your statement. So were you referring to everybody?
Is the opposition not the honourable members of the House, Madam President? Everybody.
Honourable member,
honourable
you're
member.
contradicting yourself.
How so? Madam President, my statement was not directed towards any specific member. Would you like me to withdraw my statement?
Yes, honourable member.
I withdraw, I yield, Madam President.
Thank you. Honourable member, you may continue.
Thank you. Now let me address the issue of Haitian nationals directly. This is a sensitive matter, but leadership requires honesty. Haiti is currently facing severe instability, humanitarian crisis, and security challenges. Gangs have risen in power and now control around 90% of the capital, Port-au-Prince. And St. Kitts and Nevis remains committed to regional solidarity, of course. But solidarity does not mean ignoring capacity constraints. We must consider population size, resource limitations, and institutional capacity. Selective acceptance policies is not discrimination, it's risk management. It is about ensuring that we don't take on more than we can responsibly handle. Let me be very clear, this is not about rejecting Haiti. It is about recognizing that different circumstances require different responses. True regional leadership is not emotional, it is strategic. The opposition wants to make this about pride. But governance is not about pride, it's about outcomes. It is about protecting jobs, protecting revenue, protecting stability. Madam President, sovereignty is not just the ability to refuse. It is the ability to decide wisely under pressure. The ability to engage the world while protecting our people. So today we are not choosing between strength or weakness. We are choosing between responsibility or recklessness. And this government, we choose responsibility, of course. I and this honorable government prefer international partnerships over sanctions and damage control over flat-out refusal. So as a result, we are in full support of the motion. With that, I rest my case. May it please you, Madam President.
I recognize the honourable member for Nevis 6.
Madam President, the move before this House seeks to address the contentious issue of the acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM members, states while balancing severity, security, and economic concerns. While the government may present this proposal as an act of regional responsibility, the opposition believes that when we move beyond theory and examine the lived reality of small island states such as the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, this proposal raises serious concerns about sustainability, capacity, and economic responsibility. And for that reason, we cannot support this resolution. Madam President, financial management requires that governments allocate resources carefully and ensures that policies remain economically sustainable over the long term. According to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, governments within the Eastern Caribbean must maintain fiscal discipline in order to protect economic stability. The institution emphasizes, and I quote, "Sustained fiscal responsibility is critical to safeguarding economic growth and resilience in small island states," end quote. Madam President, accepting and integrating deportees requires investment in housing, healthcare, education, employment, and social support systems. These are not short-term commitments. These are long-term responsibilities that must be funded year after year. Madam President, with the greatest respect, the opposition seeks clarity on how the government expects this federation to take additional responsibilities when many of our own citizens are already experiencing economic pressure. Across the federation, families are dealing with rising food prices, increasing utility costs, and limited employment opportunities for young people. Madam President, according to the World Bank, inflation in St. Nevis was approximately 3.6% in 2023, reflecting rising consumer prices and the increasing cost of living. Madam President, this indicates that households are already facing higher expenses in their everyday lives. Madam President, we must also consider the strain on public services, particularly care. According to the World Health Organization and the World Bank, health expenditure in St. Nevis was approximately 9.7% of GDP in 2023, highlighting the level of financial resources already required to maintain healthcare systems. Madam President, this demonstrates that even maintaining current services demands significant investment, and expanding these systems further without proper planning would place additional pressure on already limited national resources. Madam President, attention must be also given to tourism, which remains one of the most important pillars of the Federation's economy. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, and I quote, travel and tourism continue to play a critical role in supporting employment and economic activity in island destinations, end quote. Madam President, tourism contributes and...
I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 3.
Madam President, I would just like to briefly present some
Honourable Member for Nevis 6, please be seated.
Madam President, I meant the Honourable Member for Nevis 6 mentioned that this will, and as an affirmative statement, she mentioned that this will require massive investment. And I would like to clarify, or I'd like to clarification, that there are an estimated 42,000 CARICOM deportees, and 31,000 of them are coming from Haiti alone, which means there are around 10,000 left that will be spread across 14 CARICOM nations. And estimates have shown that St. Kitts and Nevis will have to take in under 100 people, estimated to be 70. So just to be careful when we make affirmative statements saying we will have to make massive investments and it will strain, you have to be careful with your language, because now you are convincing people that now we are having people that will massively strain our economy. And that is 0.13% of our population. Please do not misguide the people watching and listening to convince them that this is a massive investment and it will strain our nation.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 6. Honourable Member, I kindly ask that you be careful with the terms and the words that you use. Repeat, please. Honourable Member, I ask that you speak louder.
May I continue with my speech, Madam President?
Yes, you may continue.
Madam President, attention must also be given to the tourism industry, which remains one of the most important pillars of the Federation's economy. According to the World Travel
Honourable Member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Council, and I quote, travel and tourism continue to play a critical role in supporting employment and economic activity in island destinations, end quote. Madam President, tourism contributes to over 60% of economic activity within St. Nevis, meaning that more than half of our economy depends directly or indirectly on the sector. Thousands of citizens rely on tourism for their livelihoods. Taxi drivers, hotel workers, vendors,
Honorable Member, your time is up.
Madam President, may I request to have additional 2 minutes to introduce the speech?
The Honorable Member for Nevis 6 has requested 2 more minutes for her presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Making it one of the smallest surveyed states in the region. Madam President, a country of that size must be carefully manage its resources, as its capacity is naturally limited. In a nation of this size, everyone practically knows everyone. If something happens in the morning, by the afternoon, the whole island knows about it. While this may bring a smile to your face, it highlights a serious reality. We are a small nation with limited land space, limited infrastructure, and limited public services. Our hospitals include Joseph N. Franks General Hospital and Alexandra Hospital already work hard to meet the needs of our population. Housing availability and employment opportunities are already challenges that require attention. Madam President, it would be unrealistic to assume that these systems can simply expand overnight without consequences. Madam President, the opposition fully supports regional cooperation and understands the importance of standing together as Caribbean people. However, such cooperation must be practical. This proposal is not supported by the level of planning, structure, and resources required to ensure successful implementation within a small island state such as ours. Madam President, while this proposal may sound appealing in theory, it is not workable in practice. Therefore, the opposition submits that the economic realities, limited capacity, and potential risks to our tourism industry cannot be ignored. Madam President, responsible governance requires not only good intentions, but practical and sustainable solutions. For these reasons, Madam President, the opposition respectfully opposes the resolution before the Commonwealth House. May you please remain.
I recognize the Honorable Member for Nevis 2.
Madam President, honorable members, and members of the gallery, good morning. Madam President, I rise to give my contribution to the Nevis Youth Resolution that is before this honorable House. The Nevis Youth Resolution, which focuses on addressing the issue of the acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM member states. I rise in my capacity as Minister of Education and Human Resources to speak on this critical national and regional discussion. Madam President, I am not here to argue with any honorable member. I am here to present as to how these deportees will contribute to our education system and human resources. Madam President, at the heart of this matter lies not only policy, but principle. Who are we as a federation, and what responsibility do we bear? Not just to ourselves, but to our Caribbean brothers and sisters. Our Constitution, which stands as the supreme law of our land, reminds us of the importance of fundamental rights and freedoms, including the protection of human dignity, equality before the law, and freedom from discrimination. These are not abstract ideals. They are commitments that must guide how we treat every individual who enters our borders. Madam President, teachers do not appear out of thin air, and scholarships do not fall from the sky. We know that our partnerships, especially with the United States, are vital to sustaining our schools, our workforce, and our future. To ignore that reality is not a vision, it's delusion. Madam President, our education system shapes identities and expands horizons. The inclusion of CARICOM nationals within our schools introduces new perspectives, languages, histories, and traditions. This diversity is not just cultural enrichment, it is resilience. It strengthens our classrooms and prepares our youth for the realities of a global workforce. Madam President, my government acknowledges that our teachers are stretched thin and our capacity is limited, and we are actively working to address this issue. This is where responsible integration of CARICOM nationals become part of the solution. By filling critical gaps in our workforce and strengthening our education and training programs, we can ease the strain on our systems and move forward together. What the opposition calls a burden, we recognize as an opportunity to build resilience. Diversity in the classroom is not a weakness, it is a strength. It prepares our young people to thrive in an increasingly interconnected world.
Madam President, our federation, like many small island states, faces labor shortages in key sectors. By responsibly integrating CARICOM nationals, we can strengthen our workforce, fill critical gaps, and enhance productivity. At the same time, through education and training, we equip these individuals with the skills needed to contribute meaningfully to our economy. Make no mistake, this is not charity, but strategic development. Madam President, when our workforce is strengthened, our education system benefits too, because trained, productive citizens ease the strain on teachers and resources. Now, the opposition may argue that Nevis lacks the capacity to accommodate the deportees. But Madam President, capacity is not a fixed ceiling. It is a matter of planning, investment, and a responsible integration. The resolution before us makes clear that U.S. pressure has left CARICOM nations with limited room to refuse. In that reality, the responsible path is not denial, but preparation. To reject CARICOM nationals outright is to ignore both our labor needs and our constitutional duty to treat individuals with dignity. The real question is not whether we can afford to accept them, but whether we can afford to ignore the opportunities that they bring. We are members of a Caribbean community built on cooperation, solidarity, and shared destiny. When crises arise, we cannot turn inward and ignore the needs of our neighbors. We must ask ourselves, if not us, then who? If we do not step forward in moments of regional need...
Remember, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam President. It would be as if we built the foundation of CARICOM on quicksand. Madam President, the resolution calls for a regional approach, rehabilitation, reintegration, and shared funding, so that no single nation bears the burden alone. This is the constructive path forward. The opposition would have us believe that closing our doors protects us, but in truth, it isolates us and leaves us vulnerable to greater U.S. pressure. Our responsibility is not only to safeguard our citizens, but to uphold the principles of cooperation that bind CARICOM together. By embracing a collective solution, we transform what appears to be a burden into an opportunity for resilience and shared prosperity. Madam President, let us remember, this issue is not simply about numbers, it is about values. It is about balancing national interests with regional duty and security with humanity. Honorable members, St. Kitts and Nevis has always stood as a beacon of
Honorable
stability.
member, your time is up.
Madam President, can I please be allowed an extra 30 seconds to wrap up my statements?
The honorable member for Nevis 2 has requested an extra 30 seconds. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you. Honorable members, St. Kitts and Nevis has always stood as a beacon of stability, cooperation, and progress within the Caribbean. Let us continue that legacy, not by closing our doors, but by opening them wisely, responsibly, and compassionately. With that, I rest my case. May it please you, Madam President.
I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 7.
Madam President, I rise to give my contribution to the Nevis Youth Resolution before this honorable House. Madam President, members of the government, fellow members of the opposition, distinguished members of the audience, present and those viewing online, a pleasant good morning. I arise as the Shadow Minister of Education and Human Resources representing the opposition of Nevis to contribute to this important debate. Madam President, this resolution addresses the issue of the acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM member states. This matter requires careful examination as it directly affects the sovereignty, institutional capacity, and social stability of Nevis, as well as the unity of the Caribbean region. The opposition recognizes the importance of maintaining positive international relationships. However, cooperation must always be balanced with responsible planning, transparency, and fairness. Because, Madam President, we cannot go around saying, yes, no problem. This isn't a line where somebody shouts, who wants food? And so everybody answers before even hearing what's on the menu. Nevis is a small developing island, and our resources and systems are limited. Any decision to accept third country deportees must therefore be supported by clear policies, strong institutions, and proper preparation. One of the most important systems affected is education. Reintegration does not happen automatically. It requires access to training, education opportunities, and social support. As Shadow Minister, I must ask whether the government has fully considered how our institutions will manage these added responsibilities. Without proper support through education and skills development, the long-term success of such policies becomes uncertain. Now, Madam President, beyond institutions, another critical factor must be considered: our human resources. Effective reintegration depends on trained professionals, such as teachers, counselors, and social workers. The opposition therefore asks whether Nevis currently has a capacity to support these responsibilities effectively. Policies can only succeed when the people implementing them are properly equipped. Madam President, we must also protect opportunities for the youth of Nevis. Our young people are seeking education, training, and employment. Any reintegration policy must not place additional strain on the opportunities they depend on for their future. On the matter of third country deportees, the opposition makes it clear that we do not support the exclusion of Haitian deportees based solely on nationality. Haiti is a CARICOM member state, and our policies must reflect regional unity, fairness, and cooperation. If capacity is a concern, then it must be applied consistently. The strength of CARICOM lies in unity. That is why the opposition supports a regional approach by heads of government to address this issue collectively. Therefore, Madam President, I also wish to highlight the proposed Destiny Special Sustainability Zone in Nevis. While it may offer investment opportunities, concerns have been raised regarding land ownership, governance, and transparency. Many Nevisians remain skeptical, often asking, where them they think them go? The relevance of this is clear. When decisions involving sovereignty, capacity, and national development are made without full preparation or consultation, the consequences can be significant. The same principle applies to deportee reintegration. The opposition therefore believes that any policy adopted in this matter must uphold three essential principles. 1, preparation, ensuring our institutions and systems are ready. 2, transparency, ensuring our people are informed and aware. 3, fairness, ensuring that all CARICOM nationals, including Haitians, are treated with consistency and respect. Madam President, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis deserve clarity. They deserve to know how many deportees may be accepted, what processes will be used, and how institutions will be supported. Transparency builds trust, and trust strengthens governance. The real question before this House is not whether we should cooperate internationally.
And remember, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam President. But whether we are doing so with proper preparation, fairness, and long-term planning. Decisions that affect our education system, workforce, and community must be approached with care. Madam President, the future of St. Kitts and Nevis depends on policies that strengthen our institutions, support our people, and protect opportunities for our youth. As representatives in this youth parliament, it is our duty to ensure that our decisions reflect the best interests of our island, our federation, and the wider Caribbean. The opposition stands for responsible leadership, regional cooperation, and policies that protect both our people and our institutions. May it please you, Madam President.
I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 4.
Good morning, Madam President, listening and viewing audience, and distinguished guests. Today, I rise as Minister of Communication to speak on a resolution addressing the issue of third country deportees within CARICOM, while protecting national security, strengthening regional unity, and supporting reintegration. Imagine being a small island with limited space, limited services, and growing concerns, yet you are being asked to shoulder a responsibility that even larger nations struggle to manage. Are we expected to face this challenge alone? Madam President, that very question is why this resolution is both timely and necessary. I therefore rise today as my role as Minister of Communication to support this resolution before this Honorable Youth Parliament. The issue of third country deportees and the pressure facing CARICOM states require careful judgment and, most importantly, clear communication with our citizens and our regional partners. These decisions affect our society and our economy, and so it is essential that the public remains informed and reassured throughout the process. Madam President, across the Federation, there are understandable concerns about our capacity to accommodate deportees. Citizens are asking how many individuals may be accepted and whether our small island state can manage this responsibility without placing strain on social services. These questions show that people care about national stability. As Minister of Communication, I believe government must respond with openness and with clarity. People must understand that acceptance will be controlled, that proper screening will be in place, and that the decision will be guided by national capacity and security considerations. When communication is clear, fear is reduced, and public trust grows. Security concerns also remain central to this discussion. The public has expressed anxiety about accepting individuals with serious criminal histories, as well as concerns about health and mental wellness checks. These are valid issues and highlights the need to communicate screening procedures clearly. Governments must reassure citizens that safeguards exist and that the safety of our communities will not be compromised. Silence creates doubt, but clear information builds confidence in national decisions. Madam President, the resolution also raises the issue of Haiti's exclusion and how this may affect regional relationships. CARICOM is built on unity and on shared identity, and any sign of division can create tension within the region. This is why communication matters. Decisions must be explained in a way that shows our limits and security concerns rather than suggesting disregard in a way that shows for member states. A regional approach, as proposed in this resolution, allows CARICOM to work together and reduce misunderstandings. Another challenge is the risk of division when CARICOM countries make separate deals with outside partners. Small state negotiation alone may face greater pressure. However, a united regional response strengthens both our voice and our unity. Communication keeps that unity strong. When CARICOM speaks as one, the region is seen as a team rather than countries standing alone. The ideas within this resolution offer a clear path forward. A regional CARICOM approach promotes shared responsibility and prevents one country from carrying too much of the burden. The proposed CARICOM Rehabilitation Fund provides support that can ease the social and economic pressure.
Honourable Member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Noted. An economic pressure linked to reintegration. Clearly explaining this fund shows that the issue is being handled with planning rather than rushed decision-making. Beyond our region, communication also shapes how St. Kitts and Nevis is viewed internationally. Messaging must show cooperation while protecting national interest. A calm and united approach allows the Federation to work with international partners while protecting its independence. Through responsible communication, government can manage external pressure without losing public trust. In conclusion, Madam President, I support this resolution because strong policy must be matched by clear communication. Citizens deserve honest information, regional partners deserve openness, and international partners deserve consistency. May it please you, Madam President.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 9.
Madam President, honourable members of the government, distinguished guests, and members of the media, good morning to you all. As Shadow Minister of Communications, I rise to give my contribution to the Nevis Youth Resolution, which focuses on addressing the issue of the acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM states before this honourable house. The opposition does not stand here without compassion. We stand here with responsibility. Responsibility to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, their safety, their livelihoods, and their future. The resolution before us today, while well-meaning, proposes solutions that are vague, costly, and potentially dangerous for small island states like ours, and for that reason, we urge this Parliament to oppose it. Bilateral agreements are smart, not shameful. Madam President, the resolution criticizes countries for signing individual agreements with the United States, but small nations like ours need flexibility. According to the World Bank, policies in small states must be carefully tailored to their size, capacity, and vulnerabilities. What works for larger Caribbean country nations like Jamaica cannot simply be applied to small Caribbean countries like St. Kitts and Nevis. We have limited jobs, limited land, and limited resources. Bilateral agreements allow us to negotiate terms that protect our citizens first. Furthermore, the United Nations emphasizes that all states enjoy sovereign equality. This means we have the right to make decisions in our natural interests. So, Madam President, negotiating the best deal for our people is not weakness, it is leadership. The CARICOM Rehabilitation Fund is unrealistic. Madam President, the resolution proposes a regional rehabilitation fund, but we must ask, where is the money coming from? Partially the US, partially CARICOM states, but small island economies cannot afford this. Who would take accountability? We must handle this pressure. We are already struggling on our own with our own challenges with the limited resources that we have. The pressure on willingly accepting third country deportees, it just doesn't seem right. Additionally, the United Nations Development Program highlights that small island states face structural economic constraints, including small markets and limited revenue bases. So I ask, how can we afford to fund a large regional program when we are already struggling? A fund with no clear source of money is not a policy, it is a wish. Madam President, good intentions do not pay for health care, education, or national security. The security of our citizens must come first. As Shadow Minister of Communications, I will not be silenced. The most serious issue is safety, the safety of our people, Madam President. The resolution fails to clearly define who will be accepted. This could include non-CARICOM nationals or individuals with serious criminal records. Would proper background checks be conducted? How will we protect our citizens, our women, our children? According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the return of deported offenders has, in some cases, contributed to increased crime challenges in Caribbean states. In small islands like ours, even one serious incident can have devastating consequences, not only for families, but for our tourism-based economy. We need to prioritize the safety of our communities. The government may say CARICOM solidarity means we must accept deportees, but in reality, solidarity doesn't mean ignoring the safety and capacity of small islands. The Caribbean Development Bank also knows that crime and insecurity can significantly undermine economic growth and tourism in the Caribbean. Madam President, we are not opposed to compassion, we are opposed to recklessness. Our first duty should be to protect our citizens.
Honourable Member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Madam President, we are not saying that third country deportees are bad people, nor are we saying CARICOM should not care. What we are saying is this: the resolution's approach is too rigid. It's unclear and too risky for small island states like ours. We must prioritize flexibility, economic reality, and national security. Because in the end, leadership is not about making popular decisions, it is about making responsible ones. For these reasons, Madam President, we urge this House to oppose the resolution. May it please you. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 3.
Madam President, I rise to give my contribution to the Nevis resolution that is before this honorable House. Madam President, my esteemed colleagues, members of the opposition, intelligent audience, both online and in the gallery, I bid you a very good morning. The Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis is the supreme law of our land, and it reminds us that leadership is first and foremost about protecting the people we serve. Not pleasing rhetoric, not scoring debate points, protecting people. And this is exactly where my government stands. Today's debate is not about rejecting international partnerships, nor is it about ignoring our global responsibilities. It is about understanding a very simple truth. Small nations, like ours, do not have the luxury of reckless decisions disguised as boldness and patriotism. Because when the opposition speaks, Madam President, they speak as if consequences are optional, when they are not. As we examine this issue, we must ground this discussion in reality. Not theory, not pride, reality. And reality tells us that St. Kitts and Nevis is deeply connected in the global economy. Our tourism, our banking, our ability to travel all depend on international relationships. So let me be very clear. We do not have the ability to say no to the US and others without serious consequences. And any member who believes otherwise is not thinking like a policymaker. They're thinking like a spectator. Because when visa restrictions tighten and financial systems come under pressure and trade relationships strain, it is not the politicians in this room who suffer first. It's the people. The mother whose child is studying abroad, working daily to build their future. What happens when restrictions tighten? She cannot visit, she cannot support them, she may not even be able to attend their graduation. No, that student faces uncertainty because of decisions made in this room. It is the taxi driver who relies on travel to pay bills. It's the citizen who must travel for medical expenses and seeking treatment they cannot receive here. In this chamber, it is easy to speak in theory. But outside these walls, consequences are not theoretical. So when the opposition speaks in such casualty, I ask them, who will explain that decision to the average citizen when these consequences inevitably arrive? This government will not gamble with the livelihoods of citizens for political pride and the burning desire to disagree with everything the opposing party says. As some may say, that some do. Cooperation is not weakness, it is strategy. Madam President, allow me to address the fear being pushed by the opposition that somehow acceptance automatically means danger. Acceptance isn't reckless. This government is not proposing open borders. We're proposing structure and control, which is exactly what our resolution champions. Not every deportee is a criminal. Many are individuals who violated immigration laws, but have family, culture, and roots in this region. So what is safer? A structured screening system with rules and regulations, or reactionary refusal with no control at all? The answer is obvious, and if this even has to be explained, it is concerning. Let us go deeper, because the opposition phantom security concerns and forget basic responsibility. Many of these CARICOM nationals Caribbean nationals come through CARICOM. We love to speak about regional unity at debates. We love to celebrate our shared identity. And we love to champion about Caribbean pride. When Usain Bolt was dominating the world stage in track and field, we all felt an attachment to him because we all had similar roots. But no...
Honourable Member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. But no, when a Jamaican brother needs help, we turn our back. No, we resist. When responsibility knocks at our door, we hesitate and we give pushback. Madam President, unity is not a slogan. We cannot stand here and benefit from regional cooperation and turn our backs on members of our own regional family when it becomes inconvenient. That is not leadership, it is hypocrisy. Madam President, let us speak about the future. Because while some are focused on long-term fear, this government is focused on long-term sustainability. As the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis faces population challenges, migration continues to pull people out of our nations, birth rates remain low, and our workforce is not growing. The UN projects that by mid-century, our population could decline by nearly 6%. So while others see risk, the government recognizes opportunity. Structured reintegration of Caribbean nationals can contribute to our labor force, strengthen our communities, and support long-term development.
Honourable Member.
Madam President, I request another minute to complete my statement.
The Honourable Member for Nevis 3 has requested 1 more minute. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The proposed rehabilitation fund that has been mentioned 3 times by my government is somehow being ignored. This is how we will fund it. This is not careless policy. This is forward-thinking governance. So let me conclude with this. This government is not acting out of pressure. We are acting out of responsibility. Responsibility to protect our citizens from economic fallout, responsibility to maintain public safety, and responsibility to uphold regional cooperation, and responsibility to plan for the future of this federation. And I call upon the members of CARICOM to join this initiative to reintegrate our own into our own societies. The opposition may choose comfort in idealism, but the government chooses reality. And in leadership, Madam President, reality is what protects people. May it please you, Madam President.
I recognize the honourable member for Nevis 5.
Madam President, members of the opposition, I rise again. The opposition made some presentation here today. They were screaming, women, children, youth, women, children, youth. My government is thinking women, children, youth, which is why we said not at this moment. We did not say no. We said not at this moment to the Haitian nationals. Think of this. It was presented earlier. 26 different gangs take control of 90% of the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. 26 different gang members. Madam President, how are we supposed to properly reintegrate Haitian nationals when there's no documentation, no paper, no history, no trail, no nothing? Nothing to show their criminal history, nothing to show nothing. And the leader of the opposition, she made a statement earlier. Yes, 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 yes. This government is not saying yes, 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 yes loosely. This government is saying yes to partnership, yes to regional unity, yes to a CARICOM, a U.S. CARICOM reintegration fund. You ask how this will be funded? U.S. CARICOM reintegration fund shall sponsor it. Monies from the U.S., monies from CARICOM nations combined together shall properly reintegrate people. Madam President, this resolution is not about whether persons can come in or whether persons can go out. Madam President, our opposition members fail to recognize if we say no, persons still will arrive, and how will we assist them? With what? When we partner, we get the finances to do this properly. Imagine, as the Minister of Finance said, it is $3,000 per person. Are we saying no to that? Are we saying no to a fund that could help develop our island, develop our people? You're asking about job creation. Are we saying no to job creation? Are we saying no to housing expanding? Madam President, our opposition members need to look inside, reflect, and come again, because this resolution is what is best for our people. There is a difference between opposition and government, and we can clearly see why these persons, my government ministers and I, are on the side of government, while the opposition sits in opposition. Madam President, with that, I wish this resolution a safe passage through this honorable House.
The question is that the Nevis Youth Resolution, which focuses on addressing the issue of the acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM member states, be passed in this honorable House. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The resolution has now passed to this honorable House. At this time, before the adjournment begins, I kindly ask that everyone stand as we have a 1-minute moment of silence for Leticia Gomes, our classmates, schoolmates, and dear friend who has sadly passed away. We extend our condolences and prayers to her family and friends, especially her mother, during this difficult time. I thank you. You may be seated. I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 8.
Madam President, I briefly rise on the adjournment of this honorable House. Today's debate was important, but key concerns remain. We heard about cooperations and proposals, but not enough about readiness, capacity, and certainty. In particular, the proposed Caribbean Rehabilitation Fund raises a critical question. When did the United States agree to fund this initiative? Can you please tell me, someone? Because if that commitment has not been secured, then we are not discussing a concrete plan. We are discussing a possibility. Madam President, our people deserve more than good ideas. They deserve systems that are prepared, funded, and reliable. Because without certainty, even the best proposals can fail. I thank you, but Madam President, I rise to move the adjournment of this honorable House. Signed.
I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 7.
Madam President, I rise to second that motion.
The question is that this honorable House be adjourned, signed, die. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. This honorable House is adjourned, signed, die.
First and foremost, I give thanks to Almighty God for His grace, His mercy, and His guidance in bringing us to a successful mock sitting of this honorable House. Permit me at this moment to acknowledge Her Honor, Your Honor, Mrs. Hailita OBE, MH, Deputy Governor General for the Island of Nevis, Honorable Michelle Clark, President of the Nevis Island Assembly. Acknowledge also the Deputy Premier, Honorable Eric Evelyn. He had to leave a few minutes ago. Other members of Cabinet in the Nevis Island Administration. With us we have Honorable Jonelle Nisbet, and we have Mrs. Helen Lewis, our legal advisor. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Farrell Smitten, former president of the Nevis Island Assembly, all senior civil servants, our evaluators, Mrs. Tammy Ajodi Liber Brown, attorney at law, Ms. Joy Napier, the founder and principal of the Nevis International Secondary School, Mr. Mario Phillip, Gender Affairs Officer in the Department of Gender Affairs in the Nevis Island Administration, specially invited guests, parents, guardians, friends, and well-wishers of our youth parliamentarians. I say a very pleasant good morning to everyone, and thank you for being here. We just want to say that our youth parliamentarians did very well this morning. And we truly want to congratulate them on an excellent debate. And I say, congratulate yourself, you did well. You all demonstrated with clarity, civility, and you all showed a keen purpose of the issues at hand. You did a very good job. When we look at your engaging discourse this morning and your willingness to consider diverse perspective shows mature leadership. Thank you. I think they deserve a standing ovation and another round of applause. They did well. They did extremely well. Okay. A certificate of participation will be presented to each youth parliamentarian who took part in today's mock sitting. We give them this certificate as a way to demonstrate our gratitude for their hard work and dedication in making today's mock sitting a success. Your hard work truly paid off this morning. So at this time, I would like to invite Your Honor, Mr. Hailita Liebert, OBE, MH, the Deputy Governor General for the island of Nevis, and the Honorable Michelle Clark, to join me in this process. At the conclusion of the distribution of certificates, one of our evaluators is going to give us an overview of the mock sitting, and this will be followed by brief remarks by Madam President. So could you please join me now? We have Chris Clark. Kenyo Challenger. Micah Maynard. Elijah Brown. Michelle Bowen. Mitchell. Chevonne Daniel. Angelina Kalidas. Asia Liebert. Shaquana Jones. Alisa Jeffers. Brianna Farrell. Kalikwan Giff. Thank you. We now invite one of our evaluators to give the overview.
Good morning, everyone. We are very pleased by the performances, the presentations that were given this morning, and we want to commend all of our youth parliamentarians for a job well done. The future of Nevis is indeed in good hands and very bright. The presenters this morning would have all done a good job in presenting their arguments. One, you would have done a great job in raising or inspiring doubt in the points of the opposite side. So the use of rhetorical questions stood out to us, and so you would have really caused us, even after hearing from one side, when we heard from the other side, you say, I wonder. And so that was a good job, because you ensured that we didn't just take what we heard, but you inspired doubt with the use of your rhetorical questions. We found that each speaker also raised real issues, such as the small economies of our island states, big versus small islands. So we had Jamaica on one hand, and of course St. Kitts and Nevis on the other, the limited population, and also the U.S. pressure, or pressure from the U.S. government. We want to commend the President, Madam President, for how you handled the session and kept good order, especially when you were challenged. All right, so and so you stuck to your statement, and you ensured that order was kept. Some other points to be noted. We found that there was absolutely no reference to the impact on CBI and the establishment of U.S. military assets, and that's actually mentioned in the resolution. The resolution makes recommendation for a fund, but we got no assurance from the government as to how the U.S. is going to be contributing to this fund. With the exception of the member from number 7, we found that on the opposition side, there were not many alternative options presented for the situation at hand. So we wanted to hear more clearly, if we are not going to do this, then what will we do? What are the options? We found that the opposition didn't go into much depth and detail as to the negatives. So if we are going to pass this resolution and you're persuading us that no, we should not, what would be the negative impacts? They were mentioned, so good on you, but we wanted you to give some proof, give some supporting detail to convince us totally that this resolution definitely should not be passed. We found that generally on both sides there was a reliance on the script, so much so that some presenters, their hands were even tied to the lectern. All right, and so that limited the use of gestures. And also audibility was an issue in some cases. We had to strain to listen, to hear what was being presented. I have to say that in relation to the gestures, it seems like our female parliamentarians have outdone our male parliamentarians. I don't know if that's because you're accustomed to speaking with your hands more. I must say, with the exception of the member from number 3, you had a very open stance, and so it seems as if you were welcoming us to listen to you, right? So very good. and very good to the females who would have, used their hands much more than the males. So please pay keen attention to that. Don't be tied to your script. Use your hands to make gestures and even small illustrations, your high, low, separate issues. But generally, I would say that you all would have done an outstanding job. It was evident that you did a lot of research, and so you would have been educating some of us if we were not following in the news and being aware. And so we are highly impressed by what you would have done, and we want to tell you to keep on honing your craft, honing your skills, keep on researching, and staying current with what is happening around us. Congratulations on a job well done.
Good morning, everyone. Madam President, honorable members, our honorable youth parliamentarians, honorable Her Excellency, our Deputy Governor General, Minister, Legal Advisor, panel of judges, Clerk of the Assembly, as well as our former President of the Assembly, and all our students, supporters, parents, everybody. Good morning. Thank you all for coming to join us this morning. We are happy that you're here. And I would like to join in everybody who spoke before me to commend this group of youth parliamentarians on a job that was very, very, very well done this morning. From very early in their preparation, they were so enthusiastic about the prospect of being a part of the Youth Parliament, on sharing their views on the topics. They were doing an ad hoc, unplanned, short clips of themselves in the preparation, and they were all very happy and willing to participate, which is not something you readily find in young people on things that are positive. And so it was refreshing to witness that amongst them. You would note from the tenor of the debate that they were not too scripted. The points of order were not instructions we gave to them. And the exchange between the president and the member, that was not something that was suggested. It was all natural, and we want to commend them for that. So they were acting in their true element. And it shows as well that they have a good understanding of our standing orders of the Assembly and the rules of debate and the rules of the House. The Youth Parliament program is part of our responsibility to ensure education in the working of the Assembly, and we are committed to this endeavor. We usually send out our expressions of interest, our invitations, to persons who want to join the Youth Parliament. We are making some changes to the program this year so that we can get an older age group to interact with our younger youth parliamentarians, because we want a balanced voice of young people to speak on these issues of national importance. The topic we spoke on today is something that is relevant in the news currently, but there are many other things that are topical as well, and we want to give young people the opportunity to express their views on these matters in a space such as this, and hopefully at some point our youth parliament can develop in such a way that our parliament has an obligation to consult with our youth parliamentarian on matters that are being discussed and matters that are affecting our island. And so this is a stepping stone to that place. We commend this group for joining us, and we still remain open for persons who are interested in joining the Youth Parliament Association. I also thought of giving a young person here the opportunity to follow me and give their feedback on how this morning's sitting was. It's very impromptu and unplanned, so it's an open opportunity. It may be taken or it may be declined, but we will have a closed session following the end of the sitting so that we can discuss before we go for lunch. With that said, I believe I've covered my notes. I just want to express again my gratitude to the parents who came to support your young people, your children. I saw that they were happy to see you. I noted one mommy's applause was the loudest when her daughter finished after she came in at the perfect time. I want to thank our government members, our opposition members, the president, our clerk and sergeant-at-arms for acting in their roles in a way that was very consistent with the obligations and their duties as set out in the standing orders. They did a really good job. The voting on the motions, the general decorum of the House, they did well. The panel of judges would have referenced the reading of the scripts, which is something they are aware is mentioned in the standing orders. You are participating in a debate, and so your presentation really should be from memory. You're speaking from your heart on the subject at hand, and you can glance at your notes to refresh your memory. So that's something we will continue to work on. And outside of that, I just want to commend you on a job well done. And I thank you all for being with us here today and for participating in the session as you did. We have 30 seconds while I go back to my seat to see if our youth parliamentarian will give us their views. But outside of that, thank you very much for coming and enjoy the rest of your day.
I would like to thank everybody for, I would like to thank everybody for coming. I appreciate all the support. I think this is a very good endeavor. Me personally, I'm very into politics. I love politics. This is something that I was very surprised that all of us here were very knowledgeable, even before hearing the topic. When we first came to our first practice, there was as Ms. Slack said, that there was an open session debate, and there were both sides going back and forth, showing that young people are still interested in what's going on in the world. I didn't really expect anybody to really know, because I didn't even know that much about the topic, but I had my own views, and everyone seemed to have different views, and I think that was a very constructive debate, and I think that learning how to speak is a skill that I find is being diluted in our society, and it's becoming not as common for people to be interested in public speaking, and I think that it's something I try to work on. I am very happy that other people my age are also interested in public speaking. And I thank Ms. Slack and Ms. Williams for setting this up for us and putting effort into our young people, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much, Micah, and we do appreciate your being with us for your second year in the Youth Parliament Group. At this time, I would want to invite you to stand as we have the departure of the Deputy Governor General, please. Thank you. You may be seated. Enjoy the rest of your day.